Hello everyone, my name is Tim Edwards, and today we're going to go over a brief presentation about the radio broadcasting industry. It's my hope that by the end of the presentation you've learned a little bit about radio. Primarily we're going to focus here today on the history of radio, its main competitors it sees today, as well as an outlook for future scenarios. I was actually attracted to radio here as a topic because it was something that I had an interest in for quite a while. Actually, it was one of the things that I considered majoring in my undergraduate degree before I decided to pursue business. I've been told by some that I have the voice for radio, which is actually a pretty nice compliment. And I've been told by some others that I have the face for radio. So, I'll take the voice personally. Well, let's go ahead and get started here. Our first slide is going to focus here on why to study radio. Radio has been around, of course, for quite some time, and people are pretty familiar with the topic, so some might ask, why do we even need to bother studying this? Well, the basic answer is that it's an important part of society, even still today. Radio, its biggest advantage, of course, is that it's a free service, that it's easy to use. Their consumers have access to it through a multitude of methods here. There are actually more than several billion receivers for AM and FM radio stations globally, more than 800 million in the US alone. That's right, there are more receivers for AM and FM stations than there are actually citizens in the United States. So obviously there's a lot of opportunities for the message to go out and reach people, very convenient in that regards. A radio is also still something that's used primarily for communication there. It's still a popular means to get out notices, important breaking news, or weather alerts there. So it still has a relevance factor in that. So those are the reasons why it's important to study. But let's take a look now at some of the history that goes along with radio industry. Radio has been around in some way, shape, or form in existence there for over 100 years now. In fact, actually the first AM station went live back in 1920. So yeah, we're coming up on the century mark for that. That's pretty exciting. FM radio came around the same time, although it took quite a bit of time for that to actually develop into the popularity that we associate with it today. It wasn't until 1978 that FM actually became more popular than AM. Now, many historians will tell you that there's a lot of debate as far as who actually invented the radio, but what's not up for debate is that the gentleman Marconi and Armstrong had significant impacts in the development of radio and the technology here, kind of shaping it to what we know it as today. Marconi was really the first to understand the concept of using radio in the marketplace. They're getting the commerce side of it identified. He also was responsible for some great technology that helped improve the quality of radio. Armstrong, on the other hand, is widely known because he was the one that received the patent for the FM frequency. So obviously this is really big. Here he also was instrumental in developing technology that made radio a lot cheaper. And that's also very important, especially back in the day when almost every home had a radio in it. It was because it was an affordable way to learn information, maybe cheaper than buying the papers every day. You could have a radio in your home and have the news sent to you. So that's a brief recap of the history of radio industry. Now we'll take a look at some common terms and good things to know about radio here, including what in the world does AM and FM actually stand for? Well, AM stands for amplitude modulation. FM, of course, stands for frequency modulation. And there are distinguishing characteristics that separate the two. AM is known more for having a better range there because it has more power, more amps to actually send out the signals, whereas FM has focused on quality. It generally has a higher quality sound than the AM stations. This is actually an explanation to why you would find musical stations there, stations that play music more frequently on FM there, because obviously in music it's your sound quality, acoustics, that's key to really enjoying it. So you're going to find more music stations on FM, and you'll have more talk radios on AM because they're not primarily as concerned with quality of sound like the music industry would be, but instead having the benefit of having a broader range there is more appealing in these scenarios. Radio earns revenue, just like television industries often do, is that they'll sell airspace to advertisers. They can go and say, hey, we can track how many people actually listen to our shows, and it's hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people even each week. So they have an opportunity to divide up time in commercial breaks to actually sell that space to companies that want to advertise their products. A lot of radio stations, as well on the local level, are supported by listeners. Here it's not uncommon to see radio programs and towers do drives and fundraisers to try to raise money there so they can stay open, as many of them can be non-profit in nature. All right. We'll take a look now at the main competition that radio faces. Historically, TV has been one of radio's biggest competitors, especially after World War II. TV became much more commonplace, much more likely to be found in every person's home, and that's kind of ate away at the marketplace for radio. More recently, though, some other important factors have come into play with the rise of the internet and Wi-Fi, which has, of course, given way to smartphones, as well as iPods, personal computers, of course. Services like Pandora and Spotify, they are changing the way in which people listen to music. Now you're just as likely to have people listening on their smartphones to radio or to online streaming. In fact, as of 2013, over 60% of Americans have a smartphone, and that probably has increased exponentially here since this book was written. So smartphones, technology, Wi-Fi, that all is certainly playing a very big role, especially in the fact that more and more cars today are being outfitted with smart technology. And this is important to radio broadcasting because about 73% of its listeners are actually people that listen to radio in the car. So that's obviously eating away at a prime pool there for people that are listening, and instead of switching over to radio, they're going and using their Pandora browsing there on their car. So that's obviously a big concern. Another big concern that's a relatively recent enter is the satellite radio industry. Satellite radio started around the turn of the century, and of course, as you can probably guess by the name, it uses satellites to send out signals there. It'll send the transponder up, we'll send it up to space, it'll bounce off the satellite and go back down to the receiver, which is most often in cars. The biggest benefit here is that it pretty much provides unlimited range, whereas terrestrial broadcasting is reliant upon towers to send the signal through a certain range. Satellite broadcasting doesn't really have that concern. Now, it does have a subscription fee, which is really probably radio's strongest component against satellite, is that, of course, it's a free service. So consumers have to value if they want to spend money on a subscription to avoid commercials, or if they don't mind having commercials, listen to the regular broadcasting. We'll take a look now as we close at the outlook, what the present circumstances are like here for radio broadcasting, as well as what could be done in the future. Key thing to take away is radio, of course, is still relevant here, reaching over 93% of the U.S. population each week. So obviously there's still a market out there for it. Improvements have come along in the past few years, such as HD radio there, as well as digital radio, providing a stronger and clearer sound. And more recently, many broadcasting companies have started to go local more in what they offer to provide more of a custom fit, as opposed to what you would see like on the internet, like a national news type thing. Here they're trying to focus more on the local level, so things that be of interest there. There are still some concerns with the way Twitter, things like that, are feeding social media as another way to compete against local news there. So that's definitely an opportunity and a threat there that they can face. But we'll close out this presentation here today with the prompt question. And for you guys, my prompt question is, what in your opinion is one of the best things that radio industry can do to compete and stay relevant in today's industry with the new competitions that it's facing? So I hope you guys enjoyed the presentation and perhaps learned a thing or two. Let me know what you thought, I guess, in the discussion board, but I hope you have a great rest of your day.